People think billionaires are geniuses. They're not. I've sat across from them for 60 years, in boardrooms, at dinners on airplanes. Most of them aren't smarter than you. They just think differently. And more importantly, they think longer. The myth of genius is convenient. It gives people an excuse to stay lazy. Oh, they're just special, gifted, lucky. It's nonsense. Billionaires don't win because of intelligence. They win because of rationality. They build habits that protect them from the stupidity everyone else calls normal. They don't wake up looking for excitement. They wake up looking for clarity. I've seen very smart people destroy themselves chasing novelty, new ideas, new trends, new markets. And I've seen quiet, boring thinkers become billionaires by mastering the same principles day after day without trying to look impressive. Everyone's looking for brilliance. Few are looking for discipline. But discipline is what genius looks like over time. You want to know how billionaires think every day? It's not complicated. It's just uncommon. They think in probabilities, not certainties. They ask, what could go wrong, before they dream about what could go right. They don't react. They prepare. I've watched people blow up fortunes because they couldn't control their emotions for 5 minutes. And I've watched others quietly double theirs because they knew how to sit still when everyone else was losing their minds. The difference isn't brilliance, it's temperament. The average person treats thinking like a part-time job. Billionaires treat it like oxygen. They think when it's boring, they think when it's painful, they think when it's uncertain. They think when everyone else is feeling. And that's the key. They don't let emotion run the show. They understand that clarity and calm compound faster than excitement and chaos. If you think the secret is intelligence, you're already lost, because the world doesn't reward smart people. It rewards sane ones. Every day, the people at the top of the game ask themselves the same question. Am I thinking clearly, or just reacting emotionally? You can build an empire from that question alone. People think billionaires chase opportunity. What they actually do is eliminate stupidity. That's the hidden game. You win by subtraction, not addition, by avoiding what doesn't work rather than chasing what might. I'm not telling you this to impress you. I'm telling you this because I've spent my entire life watching people fail for the same reasons: arrogance, impatience, and noise. The billionaires you envy aren't better than you. They're just quieter inside their own heads. And if you can learn to think that way, you'll be shocked at how far it takes you. Most people think success starts with opportunity. It doesn't. It starts with mindset. I've seen people trip over billion-dollar ideas because their minds were wired for distraction, not for discipline. They wanted dopamine, not data. The difference between the average person and a billionaire isn't access. It's attention. The average person fills their day with noise. The billionaire fills it with thought. We wake up asking, what deserves my focus today? Not what's urgent, not what's exciting, what actually matters. That's the first layer of the billionaire mindset, ruthless clarity. If you don't know what matters, you'll waste your life chasing what doesn't. I've seen it 1,000 times. Someone brilliant, energetic, ambitious, but scattered. They work like hell, but on the wrong things. Activity feels like progress. It's not. The people who win are the ones who can filter the noise, who can say no 99 times before they say yes once. The billionaire mindset isn't about more ideas. It's about fewer, better ones. When you think clearly, you don't need 20 strategies. You need one simple plan that you can execute with discipline for decades. That's another thing. Time. Most people think in days. Billionaires think in decades. They're not playing to look right this week. They're playing to still be standing 30 years from now. You can fake intelligence for a while. You can't fake patience forever. I once asked Warren why most people don't get rich, even when they know what to do. He said, because nobody wants to get rich slowly. He was right. The billionaire mindset accepts boredom. It embraces repetition. It doesn't chase novelty. It refines mastery. You don't see billionaires jumping from one idea to another every month. You see them repeating the same rational behavior long enough for the world to catch up. The average person confuses being busy with being productive. The billionaire knows that real progress happens in silence, when you're thinking, reading, questioning, not performing. When I was young, I thought work was about doing. Now I know it's about thinking. The right thought can save you 10 years of the wrong action. And the irony? The billionaire mindset looks boring from the outside. It's quiet, predictable, unimpressive. But inside, it's sharp as a knife, logical, detached, patient. I've spent decades studying this pattern. The people who win big all think in the same direction: long-term, rational, unemotional, skeptical, independent. They're not trying to outsmart others, they're trying to outlast them. Most people want to be right now. Billionaires want to be right eventually. That's the mindset. It's not about being smarter, it's about being consistent and having the humility to know that even when you're right, you could still be wrong tomorrow. Once you start thinking like that, life gets simpler. You stop trying to predict everything. You stop caring about noise. You stop reacting to every little movement. And that's when you realize billionaire thinking isn't about ambition. It's about peace. Because when your mind is clear, your decisions are automatic. And when your decisions are automatic, your results look effortless. The biggest edge you can have in life is the ability to think long-term while everyone else is chasing short-term noise. I've watched people spend years trying to predict next week's outcome, the next market move, the next trend, the next opportunity. And I've watched others quietly get rich by doing the same rational thing for 30 years. That's not genius. That's duration. Most people don't fail because they're wrong. They fail because they can't stay right long enough. The world rewards endurance, not intensity. Everyone wants fast results, instant feedback, instant gratification, instant everything. But compounding doesn't care about your impatience. It only works for those who respect time. I made my fortune by waiting longer than others were willing to wait. I stayed rational when they were emotional. I held when they panicked. I observed when they overreacted. You see, time is like gravity. It pulls everything down to its true value. The fools disappear fast. The wise look slow until they suddenly seem inevitable. I remember saying this decades ago. The big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting. That sentence built more wealth than any stock tip ever could. The trouble is, most people don't know how to wait. They can't sit still. They mistake patience for weakness and boredom for failure. I've seen entire empires crumble because their leaders couldn't wait for the right moment. Thinking long term isn't about ignoring the short term. It's about not letting it dictate your behavior. Every decision I make, I ask, will this still matter in 10 years? If the answer is no, I move on. That one question eliminates 90% of life's nonsense. Thinking long term gives you an unfair advantage because it aligns you with how the world actually works, slowly, compounding, invisibly. You don't see a tree grow day to day, but one day it shades the whole street. That's how wealth, reputation, and wisdom grow, quietly. Then, all at once. The irony is, the longer your time horizon, the fewer competitors you have. Because patience scares people. Everyone says they're long-term thinkers, until they're offered something shiny right now. I built my philosophy around one truth. Time favors the rational. The market, business, and life all punish the impatient, but they handsomely reward those who can stay calm through cycles, noise, and chaos. Thinking long-term is also a form of character. It forces you to live in reality, to accept that results take time, that feedback is slow, that progress is invisible until it's obvious. That's why I say patience isn't passive. It's aggressive endurance. It's the ability to act slowly in a world addicted to reaction. Every great fortune I've seen was just long-term thinking executed daily. If you can zoom out far enough, everything becomes simple. Don't rush. Don't panic. Don't interrupt compounding. Let time do the heavy lifting. That's how billionaires think. Not because they're smarter, but because they're patient enough to let the math of reality work in their favor. Most people start their day asking, how can I win? I start mine by asking, how could I lose? That's inversion, and it's one of the most powerful habits a thinker can develop. You don't need to be brilliant to succeed. You just need to systematically avoid stupidity. Everyone wants to know the secrets of success. Few are interested in studying the patterns of failure. But the world runs on failure. Every disaster leaves clues. Every collapse repeats old mistakes with new names. I've made a fortune not by predicting winners, but by avoiding the losers. The people, businesses, and ideas that were clearly doomed from the start if you looked closely enough. I call it the anti-stupid strategy. It's not exciting, but it works. The average investor dreams of 100% upside. I focus on avoiding 100% downside. Over a lifetime, that difference compounds into billions. Here's what most people never understand. Avoiding mistakes is easier than achieving miracles. You don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to be consistently rational. The problem is people hate boring rules. They'd rather chase brilliance than prevent stupidity. I've spent decades watching smart people self-destruct because they ignored the basics: overconfidence, leverage, ego, greed. They were too busy trying to be clever to notice they were standing on a trap door. Inversion forces humility. It makes you admit that you're not smart enough to predict every outcome, so you focus on what can't be ignored, what will definitely kill you. When you think backward, the fog clears. Don't ask, how do I become successful? Ask, what behaviors guarantee failure? Then stop doing those. Don't ask, how do I build wealth? Ask, what destroys wealth? Debt, ego, impatience, overconfidence. There's your list. Avoid it. Don't ask, how do I make the best decision? Ask, what would make this a terrible one? Remove those elements, and what's left is usually right. That's how rational people think. The truth is, inversion is the purest form of wisdom, because it's the only one built on humility. You're acknowledging the limits of your own brain. You're saying, I can't know everything, but I can avoid the obvious mistakes. And that alone separates you from most of humanity. Inversion also protects you from emotional thinking. When everyone's excited, you ask, how does this go wrong? When everyone's panicking, you ask, what's the real risk? It makes you steady when others shake. I've said it before. It's not supposed to be easy. The right decisions feel uncomfortable because they go against human instinct. People crave certainty and optimism. Inversion gives them doubt and realism. But reality doesn't reward optimism. It rewards accuracy. Every time I avoided something stupid, I got richer, sometimes financially, sometimes intellectually. And if you avoid stupidity long enough, people start calling you wise. So stop asking what to do next. Start asking what to stop doing now. Because the people who focus on avoiding mistakes don't just survive. They eventually own everything left behind by those who didn't. The older I got, the more I realized that simplicity is the highest form of intelligence. The world loves to complicate things. It makes people feel smart. But complexity is just disguised confusion. I've sat through board meetings where grown men used words like synergy, alignment, and optimization, and not one of them could explain how the company actually made money. Simplicity terrifies people because it exposes what they don't understand. The billionaire mind works differently. It asks one question over and over: what's really happening here? Strip away the language, the models, the excuses. What's the essence of the problem? Most people hide behind complexity to protect their ego. If it's complicated, it must be valuable. No, it's just harder to measure your stupidity when everything is tangled. The truth is, simplicity is brutal. It removes comfort. It demands clarity. When you think simply, you can no longer lie to yourself. I've built my whole career around simple questions. Does this business make sense? Would I buy the whole company if I could? Is this person trustworthy? You'd be shocked how many people get rich just by asking those 3 questions and actually listening to the answers. Everyone's trying to be clever. The winners are the ones who stay obvious. People ask me how Warren and I avoided so many disasters. We said no to almost everything. We kept our circle of competence small. We only invested in what we could explain to a reasonably intelligent person in one sentence. That rule alone eliminated 99% of the stupidity we could have stepped in. Most mistakes come from overcomplicating the simple and oversimplifying the complex. The trick is to know which is which, and that requires humility. I've met analysts who could build financial models with 1,000 variables, and yet couldn't answer the simplest question: how does this business make money? That's the disease of complexity. It seduces smart people into thinking in circles. The billionaire mindset doesn't chase complexity. It organizes it. It takes a messy reality and boils it down to a few first principles, the kind that never change. Here's one of mine. If something doesn't make sense in plain English, it probably doesn't make sense at all. I trust the simplest explanation because reality itself is simple. Nature runs on a few basic rules repeated endlessly. Business and life are no different. The discipline of simplicity is exactly that, discipline. It means saying no to ideas that sound brilliant but can't be explained clearly. It means rejecting the temptation to overanalyze when the truth is already obvious. People think simplicity limits you. It doesn't. It protects you. Complexity multiplies your chances of being wrong. Simplicity multiplies your chances of surviving. I'm not against intelligence. I'm against confusion disguised as intelligence. When I find myself unsure, I stop and ask, what's the simplest version of this truth? It's almost always the right one. Remember this, the smartest people in the room aren't the ones talking. They're the ones quietly reducing the noise to something they can actually understand. That's how billionaires think. They take the complicated and make it simple. Everyone else does the opposite and calls it sophistication. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control your life. It's that simple and that hard. I've watched fortunes built over decades disappear in a single moment of emotion. Anger, greed, fear, they don't just cloud judgment, they erase it. People imagine that success is about intelligence. It's not. It's about temperament. The difference between the calm and the emotional isn't knowledge, it's stability. The calm person can think when everyone else is reacting. That's the secret edge billionaires have. We're not always smarter, we're just slower to panic. I remember watching markets collapse while people screamed, begged, and sold everything they owned. Warren and I sat in silence. We weren't brave, we were rational. You can't think clearly when your heart is racing faster than your mind. Emotional people are slaves to the moment. Rational people are servants of the long term. The world rewards those who stay calm when others are losing their heads. You don't need to eliminate emotion. You can't. You just have to contain it. Emotion is like fire. Controlled, it cooks your dinner. Uncontrolled, it burns your house down. Every major mistake I've seen was made by someone who was momentarily emotional. They got greedy at the top. They got fearful at the bottom. They got arrogant when things went well and angry when they didn't. Emotion makes people chase noise and abandon logic. It tells you that this time is different. It never is. The market, business, and life, they all run on cycles. And those cycles punish people who can't stay calm through them. When you feel emotion rising, don't act. Observe. Wait long enough for the feeling to fade and the facts to return. That pause, that half second of restraint, is where all the advantage lives. I've been called cold, detached, robotic. I take it as a compliment. I don't confuse emotion with passion. Passion makes you want to move. Rationality makes you wait until the move actually makes sense. I've made billions by waiting. When everyone else gets excited, I get cautious. When everyone else panics, I get curious. When everyone else wants action, I look for patience. The goal is not to feel nothing. It's to let nothing control you. You can't win if you're constantly reacting. The calm mind sees opportunity where others see chaos. It's not that the world becomes easier, it's that your vision becomes clearer. Every decision that looks brilliant later felt boring at the time, because calm feels boring, but it compounds quietly. I once said that temperament beats intelligence every time. I wasn't exaggerating. I've seen geniuses go broke. I've never seen a disciplined, calm thinker stay poor for long. The control of emotion is self-respect in action. You're choosing to be governed by logic instead of impulse. That's power, not the kind people brag about, but the kind that lasts. In the end, your success will depend on how many emotional decisions you don't make. Stay calm when others lose their minds. Wait when they rush. Think when they feel. That's how billionaires think. And that's why they win, not because they're fearless, but because they know when to be still. If you want to understand how the world really works, forget intelligence. Study incentives. I've spent a lifetime watching people do the exact opposite of what they said they believed in, because the incentives pointed somewhere else. Incentives explain everything: corruption, stupidity, success, failure, and even morality. People don't do what's right. They do what they're rewarded for. It's not cynicism, it's human nature. You can give the smartest person the wrong incentive and they'll behave like an idiot. You can give an average person the right incentive and they'll surprise you with brilliance. I've seen CEOs ruin companies because their bonuses depended on short-term stock prices. I've seen politicians sell futures for votes. Brokers push garbage because commissions paid better, and employees hide problems because punishment came faster than praise. The system wasn't broken. The incentives were. Warren and I built Berkshire Hathaway around one rule: never design an incentive you wouldn't want working on yourself. That single rule saved us from disasters that destroyed others. You can't fix behavior with lectures, only with structure. You show me how someone gets paid, and I'll tell you exactly what they'll do. That's the real X-ray vision of life. The billionaire mindset doesn't just ask, what do people say? It asks, what are they paid to do? Incentives drive every decision, whether people admit it or not. It's not only about money. Recognition, ego, fear, these are incentives too. People will risk everything for attention or status. That's why social media runs the world. When I was younger, I used to assume people acted logically. I was wrong. They act incentively. You can predict the future better by studying incentives than by reading forecasts. Think about it. If someone is rewarded for growth at any cost, they'll create growth at any cost, even if it kills the company later. If someone's punished for telling the truth, you'll never hear it. Good systems make good people look better. Bad systems make good people behave badly. That's the quiet genius of the billionaire's mind. We don't fight human nature. We design around it. We build structures that make the right thing easy and the wrong thing expensive. Incentives also apply inward. You have to design them for yourself. Read because you reward curiosity, not because you're told to. Save because you value freedom, not because someone lectures you about retirement. Think because it pays in clarity, not applause. Self-incentivizing rational behavior is what separates the disciplined from the distracted. The world is full of people trying to change outcomes while ignoring the incentives that produce them. It's like trying to fix gravity by shouting at it. Whenever I see chaos, in politics, business, or life, I don't ask who's right. I ask, who's getting paid? You'd be amazed how fast things start making sense. So, if you want to start thinking like a billionaire, stop judging people by their words and start judging them by their incentives. Because once you understand incentives, you stop being surprised by stupidity and start profiting from it. People always ask me what billionaires do every day. They expect something exotic, secret meetings, hidden strategies, complicated routines. The truth is boring. We think, we read, we wait. That's it. Rationality isn't a talent you switch on when you need it. It's a daily habit. You build it the same way you build muscle: repetition, discipline, and rest. Most people fill their day with noise. They confuse activity with achievement. They're busy from dawn to dusk, but none of it compounds. Billionaires build quiet into their schedule. We protect time for thinking the way others protect time for meetings. I start my mornings in silence. No phone, no chatter, no screens, just reading. History, science, psychology, anything that sharpens mental models. Because ideas are like bricks. The more you collect, the stronger your foundation becomes. I don't read to be entertained. I read to be less stupid. Reading gives you raw material for rationality. Reflection turns it into judgment. Every day I review mistakes. Mine, others, the world's. Not to regret them, but to inoculate myself against repeating them. That's how you grow wiser without having to suffer for every lesson. People overestimate new information and underestimate good habits. You don't get smarter by reading the latest headline. You get smarter by rereading timeless ideas. Most of what I know came from things that never changed. Human nature, incentives, probabilities. They've been constant for thousands of years. So I study the permanent and ignore the fashionable. Every day I ask myself two questions. What do I know for sure? And what could destroy me if I'm wrong? That small exercise keeps me humble and alive. I don't need perfect answers. I need fewer mistakes. The average person fills their mind with noise. The rational person cleans it daily. Rationality is maintenance. You can't clean your thinking once a year and expect it to stay sharp. It's like brushing your teeth. Skip it for too long and decay sets in. That's why my routine is simple. Read, reflect, refine. I try to end every day slightly less ignorant than I started. That's my definition of progress. The billionaire mindset isn't about doing more. It's about thinking better. You don't need to fill your calendar. You need to free your mind. People waste their lives chasing hacks and productivity tricks. I've built mine on boredom and consistency. It doesn't look exciting, but it compounds, just like everything else that matters. If you repeat rational thinking long enough, it becomes instinct. And when rationality becomes instinct, you stop competing with other people and start competing only with your own ignorance. That's the daily routine. No secrets, no shortcuts, just quiet, deliberate clarity practiced every single day. After all these years, people still ask me for the secret. They think there's a hidden formula, a trick, a shortcut. There isn't. The truth is painfully simple, and that's why most people ignore it. Billionaires don't think differently because they're smarter. They think differently because they're disciplined enough to stay rational when everyone else isn't. That's the real secret. You don't get rich by predicting the future. You get rich by surviving the present. You don't build empires by being clever. You build them by avoiding stupidity. I've said it before. It's not supposed to be easy. The world is designed to tempt you into emotional, impatient, self-destructive behavior, and the crowd will always fall for it. But if you can stay calm, think clearly, and act slowly, you'll look like a genius to people who never learned how to wait. The great irony of life is that the traits that look boring, patience, simplicity, rationality, are the ones that quietly outperform everything else. Most people lose because they can't tolerate boredom. Billionaires win because they can. When others are chasing excitement, we're collecting endurance. You see, money follows behavior. It always has. That's why the real wealth isn't in your bank account. It's in your judgment. You can lose every dollar and rebuild it if your thinking is sound. But once you lose rationality, no amount of money will save you. That's why I've spent my life teaching thinking, not investing. Because the right mind eventually finds the right opportunity, but the wrong mind destroys every opportunity it touches. Everyone wants to act like a billionaire. Very few want to think like one. Thinking like a billionaire means doing the opposite of what most people do every day. When they talk, you listen. When they react, you pause. When they rush, you wait. When they gamble, you calculate. When they seek excitement, you seek endurance. That's not glamour. That's survival. And survival, extended over decades, looks a lot like genius. I've lived long enough to see cycles repeat, heroes fall, and crowds forget. But the principles never change. Stay rational. Stay patient. Don't be smarter. Be saner. Billionaires aren't thinking about the next opportunity. They're thinking about the next mistake they'll avoid. That's the quiet truth nobody wants to hear, because it means that wealth isn't about brilliance, it's about control. Control over your mind, your time, your impulses. If you can master that, you'll never need luck again. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Take a simple idea and take it seriously. That's the real secret. And if you do that long enough, think clearly, stay calm, and keep improving, you won't just understand how billionaires think. You'll start thinking that way yourself.